Hello, you're listening to episode 279 of the Small and Supercharged podcast with Ria Freeman. So, on today's Small and Supercharged podcast, we are joined by Poppy Webber. I'm not quite sure how to introduce Poppy because she is all things to all people. Anyone that is on the internet who's horsey, I'm sure knows all about you. I'm very, very lucky to have Poppy as a a client, but also a friend and just a general source of amusement. Um,
Thank you.
well, you're always doing some amazing, cool things, and you always make me smile a lot. So thank you so much for joining me and us, indeed, the wider community today.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm very excited to be here.
Now, you are a saddle fitter, an educator, a shower creator, an author, a mum, a wife. I'm
A
sure I've
mum,
missed
a
out.
wife, yeah,
Horse mum, dog mum.
yeah.
So can you take us back to, I guess, back to the start? How did you start along the journey that you're on now?
Um, well, I feel like it's a journey that has a lot of paths, and I try really hard to kind of look at the source where all the paths kind of originated, and I don't really know. I used to, I I had a really, oh, I'm not going to say tough because I had an awesome upbringing, and I was sent to really nice schools and stuff like that. But teenage life was quite tough. I had a child really early. I was estranged from my parents. I ended up homeless, and then I went to put myself through university. So I learned very quickly how to really fight to get what I wanted quite young. And I brought up my son. I went to put myself through university, came out with a degree, went back, did a master's, and I was a psychologist for a little while. And then I really, really, really missed horses because I'd been horsey as a child. And I decided on a whim one day when I eventually found a lovely husband and someone that would help support me, I thought, actually, you know, I'm going to give it a go and I'm going to try something very different. And I think I took that fighting spirit and and transformed it into kind of like whatever I do, I want to do really well. But then unfortunately, it kind of escalated into like, oh, why don't I do this as well? And what about this? And then I have to give it my everything, no matter what I do. So horses have always been my background. So I've always been horsey. I've always had horses. I was put on a pony at a very young age, and I was, riding all through my childhood, and I loved it. So I think horses have always been a natural thing for me. And then when I thought, oh, can I work with horses? What can I do? Fell in love with saddlery, saddle fitting, love it. But then I'm not very good at sticking with one thing for a really long time. But I was determined to stick with the saddle fitting. So on the side, these other little paths have sprung up. And I've tried to keep them all within the saddle fitting or horsey area. The showers were slightly different, more tangent, and that was just because it was an accidental business that we started. Story of my life. But yeah, I think I try to. I'm trying to focus now. I'm trying to make the core of everything I do like education. So even when I'm going out of saddle fitting and I'm doing the actual saddle fitting, I'm trying really hard to educate every individual horse owner about saddles, the importance of saddle fitting. Yeah, so I think education is kind of to stop me from running away with myself too much. I think I'm trying to give myself a core theme and I'm trying to make it kind of education at the moment.
No, I think that's really good. And we can see through, well, a few things we'll talk about, that there is that really strong theme of not just kind of, you're a really accomplished and really well known and well thought of saddle fitter, but it's not just that visit from the saddle fitter, which is what keeps horses happy and healthy. It's having that awareness about why it's important. And so people know when they need a saddle fitter, there's a whole load of stuff to it, and kind of that myth busting, breaking down the people's preconceptions, I guess, as well.
Yeah, 100%. Like, it's all fair enough us, someone seeing us as a saddle fitter for 1 hour every 6 months. But what happens if they knew, some of our wisdom? What happens if we could, every time we saw them, we could impart a little bit more knowledge that they could impart on their friend? It's not a myth. It's not like a dark art. It's not brain surgery. It's something that everyone should know everything a little bit about, and not just saddles, but everything horsey. Do you know how many horse owners don't even know how to take their horse's temperature or how to check the horse's, digital pulse? So many, and like the more educated the horse owners are about saddles, saddle fitting, first aid, everything, the better the life of these horses are, because these horses are the important thing, really. We ask them to do so much for us. We sit on their back and we ride them around in these daft little circles and we jump over jumps and we ask so much of them. The very least we can do is make their lives as good as possible. And the more educated we are, the better we're going to be at doing that, I think, personally.
No, I completely agree. So kind of going back a bit, obviously you said that you before you had your son, were you very horsey up to that point?
Yes, well, I was very horsey up until I kind of disappeared off the rails at quite a extortionate speed. I was a lovely little girl. I had a lovely childhood. I was very horsey all my childhood. I had horses, did pony club, show jumps, dressage, evented, did loads of hunted even. I wouldn't hunt now, I'm too scared. Loads of stuff. And then about 15, 14, 15, decided to career off the rails at a mega rate, and then everything got a little bit upskittled for a few years. And then when I came back to horses, and I had my son, obviously I was a single parent with a kid, and I didn't really know how to deal with it. And I spent a few years sort of getting my feet with that. And then when I met my now husband, and my son was about 4 or 5, we had a much more secure life. And the first thing I said was, I want horses again. So that's what we did. And I'm very lucky. We now live in Lincolnshire, and I've got horses literally in my garden. So.
That's awesome. So obviously you had your son, and then
Mhm.
at what point did you then, because you said you went to university, you put
Yeah,
yourself through university.
yeah.
So I mean, how did you manage that? And why did you pick psychology?
I picked psychology because it was a bit of a lazy choice, really, 'cause my mum was a psychology well, my mum was actually professor of psychology at Cambridge University, so it was a bit of a choice. But also I'm very interested in psychology, and I wanted to get involved in, like, mental health stuff and prisoners. I really wanted to be a prison psychologist. That was the plan, really. Um, and how did I do it? I just I don't know how I did it. I was very lucky. I had the support of a couple of friends who would, like, look after my son while I worked in the evenings, and I had to work in the evenings. And but the main reason I think that I got through any of this was the Prince's Trust. The Prince's Trust was when they were very first setting up, and they're absolutely amazing. They were very first setting up, and they're more about small business, I think, now. But at the time, they were just about helping young people. And I really wanted to go and do my A levels. So I was a kid. I'd had to drop out of A levels because I was pregnant. I really wanted to go back and do my A levels, but I couldn't get any kind of funding for that. And I had to live on benefits, and then they wouldn't get any. I couldn't have any benefits if I was doing A levels because it was deemed to be education, and I was only allowed to do vocational stuff if I wanted to get benefits. So if I
Crikey.
wanted to go and do hairdressing or childcare, I could have. They would have helped. The government would have helped fund that. But because I wanted to do something academic, they wouldn't. And that's great. If, hairdressing and childcare is brilliant for whoever's doing it, but it just wasn't for me. I wanted to do something academic. So I applied to the Prince's Trust, and I said, look, I really want to do my A levels. And they said, okay, tell you what, if you do your A levels over 9 months instead of 2 years, we will pay your rent and your childcare.
Wow, I didn't know that was how the
Yeah.
Prince's Trust used to operate, really. Because you say
So
nowadays
it's
we do see
very
it more.
different now, I think. Yeah, and it was very new. I can't even remember how I found out about them because there wasn't such thing as Google in those days. I mean, my son's 27, so it's a long time ago.
I still
But
can't
I
believe that because when I first saw a picture of him, I thought, "Who is that?" And then when you said it's your
That's
son, I
my
was like,
son.
"No, but who is that?"
He's got a beard. How can it be? Yeah. So they paid my rent and my childcare, which means that I only needed to because I wasn't getting any external benefits or anything. So I only needed to work to pay for our food, really. And hey, I was a skinny little mini then, so we didn't even eat very much. My son was only little, so we survived, and we did. I did my A levels in 9 months. I smashed them, obviously, because that's what
Obviously.
I was. Yeah, and yeah, and then from then got a place at university. And I think then university were very keen to give me a place because I was um like I'd look pretty dedicated, I think. And I think they go a little bit soft, as you know, as a teenage mum, and I had a bit of a sob story behind me. But yeah, so then I went university, got my degree, and then went to the masters then as well in it,
That's
and then
awesome.
worked in
Yeah,
that area for a few years, and then sacked it all off.
but I do think that when you look into kind of funding options for anyone at any position they're in, obviously the position you were in was pretty extreme, I'd say. Correct me if I'm wrong. Um,
Yeah,
but there is support out there for quite a lot of situations, isn't there?
loads. And we know because we do have Google and the internet now, so they're easy to find. I mean, I have no idea. I think I went to like a teenage parents group thing, and I think that the Prince's Trust had maybe sent them an advert. I don't know how I got involved with the Prince's Trust, but they literally, I can honestly say, hand on heart, the Prince's Trust saved my life, without a doubt. I was absolutely, struggling. I would never have been able to, if I hadn't done my A levels, I wouldn't have gone to university, and I would have just ended up like I don't even know how to say it, but like I would have ended up. It was I had a pretty. It was pretty tricky those times, and I do think genuinely they saved my life. And every now and again, I do email them and write to them and say, "Hi guys, you saved my life,"
I love
but I
that.
never get any reply. So maybe they forgot all about me. But they were a much bigger thing now. They were tiny. But yeah, like funding, I think there's loads of bits of funding out there for all sorts of things, which is quite easy to find now.
I do think as well what's come through and just what you've said so far, let alone what I know we're going to talk about, is that dedication. Because actually, it doesn't matter how much funding you get if you haven't got that determination.
Yeah,
It
I
kind of
was
doesn't
I
matter,
was
does it?
I was once interviewed and I was asked to describe myself in 5 words, and the first word that sprung to mind was determined. And it's yeah, that's probably the strongest personality trait I have. And I have to say I hate it sometimes. I wish sometimes I could just sit down and not be striving for something or fighting for something. It would be nice to sit down and relax. But I guess it's who I am. By the way, number 5 on my list of words that describe me, one of them was sparkly. So
I know. I was just thinking, I really hope she says that.
yeah, determined and sparkly. I think that sums me up really.
Have you always been quite determined, or do you think it was because of the situation being a single mum and knowing that you needed to sort of really push
I
yourself?
think I think I've always so my brain is always, some would say neurodiverse, and I think it's a bit of a weird terminology. I think everyone's brain works differently, but I think mine just works slightly differently than others, and it always has done from a very small, very, very, very small child. I was exceptionally bright at school, but I think I was exceptionally bright because I used to sort of focus in on work and reading. Oh my God, I love to read. And like we did this sponsored readathon thing at primary school, and I was probably 7 or 8. And we got sponsored for every book or every page of a book we read or something. And so I got sponsored. So all these kids, so what you get sent home with this little like form to fill out where you have to say, can you sponsor me to read books? So everyone's like, "Oh, I'll sponsor you £1 per book," kind of thing. And I thought, okay. So all the other children go away for this week for the readathon week, and they come back with a couple of quid in their bags. I read something ridiculous like 40 books in that week because I didn't sleep, I didn't eat. I sat there and I read and I read and I read because oh my gosh, I can read and I can read really fast. So all these poor people that were expecting to give me £1 or 2 at the end of the week,
I
that'd be £42, please.
love that.
Yeah, so I think that, and my mum often recounts that story to me because I think that really sums me up. But I hone in on something and I give everything to it always, but it isn't always a good personality trait, I don't think. But yeah, I think I've always been like that. And then over the years, I think hormones have really, I think that, and I hate using the word neurodiversity, but when your brain does work a little bit differently, it also is affected a lot by hormones. So as a teenager, I was very tricky. And then my whole adult life, I've sort of swanned along. I haven't needed any kind of medicating for anything. And then as I've hit menopause, interestingly, I found that my overloading brain, it's like my brain is always like a swarm of bees inside my head. I would describe it, all kind of vying for attention, and I've got to try and keep track of every single bee at all times. That's how it feels. But I have found that menopause actually has made that a little bit worse. So I do think it's hormones. Yeah,
Okay. Well, you do have a lot of bees going round, and I know that
we'll
you are
have a lot of bees. Yeah.
very busy lady. It's a really good analogy actually to see that. To think about that noise in your head actually, because
Yeah, always.
I think it can, and it's so easy to become overwhelmed, isn't it, in those situations as well, because
Yes,
there's so much you could do. So
yes,
then you did your masters, and was that psychology as well?
yes, in adolescence, because then I then decided, so I was going to start, my plan was to do like prison psychologist, and then I then decided actually I want to work with like young offenders. So I got
Okay.
into like adolescent stuff instead. So I went to work with young offenders.
Was that? I mean, did you enjoy that?
Oh my gosh, so basically, as I was going through uni, I had to have a job on the side. So I started to work as what's called a youth worker, where you work with these young people, and I worked within the youth offending team, working with these young people that I was then going to go on to and work within like a psychological setting. And I absolutely loved it. And I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. I want to work with these adolescents. But then I very quickly found that when I got into it as a job and I went through like the management, so I stopped being the person that worked with children as such. and I end up being people that worked with people that worked with children, and I lost it all. And I feel like I lost a little bit of love for it then. And I also very much learned that a lot of young people in offending, we're there to try and fix them. And I don't think that they need fixing as such. And I know it's really controversial, but I don't think that we should be trying to fix these people that are offending. We should be thinking about why they're offending and like the causes of it. Like, because actually, when you look at a young child, like when there's a, for example, we had a 14-year-old burglar. That's
Burglar?
how you say it.
Burglar.
He was a prolific burglar. He was burgling because his mum was a heroin addict, never had any electricity or food in the house, and he was trying to feed his younger brother. So
Oh
there's an awful
god.
lot of reasons behind why people commit crime. And then there's also even like the mindless crime that these young people get into. A lot of it's to do with the hierarchy within their society. They're in a different sort of part of society than we are, and we don't necessarily understand it. But who are we to say that how we live is right and how they live is wrong? So I got a little bit, I don't know, I think I had a bit of a, my mind just thought, actually, like, do I even, am I doing the right thing by trying to cure these kids that are offending? Or actually, should we be looking at why they're offending? Why are they in situations, when they're doing so badly at school? Why is it that, the ethnic minorities within school are more likely to get into offending? It's not because they're for their skin color. Skin color doesn't make you offend, but something's happening to them in their lives that they're being put into that, which is then making them more likely to offend. And I still think now to this day, my husband's a police officer, and I talk to him a lot about it. I think a lot of money could be saved in the world if we looked at prevention rather than cure.
No, that makes a lot of sense actually.
Yeah.
Um, no, that makes a lot of sense. So then you obviously met Nick, who
Yes.
is Mr. Hippo,
Yes.
which
The
probably
most
needs a
wonderful man in the world.
I mean, obviously I'm not married to him, but every time I've met him, he's delightful. Is
Yeah.
he in the room?
He's not in the room,
All
no.
right.
He's just gone out to do some jobs outside. It's his week off today.
Bless him. But he is also Mr. Hippo, so we might have to
Yes.
explain a bit because that sounds quite an offensive name if you don't know the background behind it.
Well, I mean, he also is quite large. I mean, you probably could mistake him for a hippo in certain lights.
No, I
Uh,
won't have that said.
yeah, so it's called Mr. Hippo because we one day accidentally set up a business making showers called Hippo Showers, and it was a complete accident because I have a grey horse. Well, I had a grey horse, I still do, but a different one now. Called Lonnie, who was a little Highland pony who was literally the most filthy, dirty pony you ever met. We used to call him the little hippo. And I needed a hot shower for him. Now, all of these portable hot showers for horses are made of gas for a very good reason. It's because they're portable and that's a good way of doing it. So I looked online. I thought, I'm going to find a gas shower and I'm going to wash my disgustingly dirty horse. I'm the sort of person, and again, I'm so focused. I can't buy something of that amount of money without looking at every single review that's ever been written about it. And I have to do my research and I have to buy the best one all the time. So I'm researching, and all of these companies have got these reviews saying, "Don't get this because it blows up," or my horse's eyelashes got singed, and I was like, I cannot be
Jeez.
trusted. I know I cannot be trusted with a gas cooker in my house because I'm so bad with gas. So there's no way I'm buying one of these things if they blow up. So then Nick says to me, "Did you buy yourself a shower?" I was like, "No way. They blow up. Like literally, Nick, they blow up and I don't want my horse to get blown up." And he was like, "Oh, it's because they're using the one boiler." Because Nick, what we didn't mention, is also a qualified gas guy. So he's in the
Which is
police now.
so random in terms
I
of
know, but
like two
random.
jobs that kind of coexist.
Yeah, he's also a qualified mechanic. He's a bit like me. I think, if we were going to talk about neurodiversity, I think he's somewhere there
How
as well.
useful to
And
have a qualified mechanic and a qualified gas
I,
magician.
you would think that that meant that my car didn't make funny noises, but it does because he thinks, it's only the whatchamacallit, that'll last for ages. And then before you know it, my wheel's fallen off. I don't know. Anyway, so he's a gas guy. So he says to me, "Oh, it's because they're using the wrong boiler thing, setup, safety, ignition, some things." And he makes me a shower and he like wodges everything together and he puts it on like an old sack barrow and he converts a little sack barrow and sprays it pink for me and it's the best little shower in the world. And then all my friends like, "Oh my god, I want a shower like yours." So then he makes them a shower and then someone says, "You should sell these." And so we thought, oh, should we? So we set up a little business online, and I thought, "Do you know what? If we sell one a year, it'll give Nick something to do in the background, it's, spraying them pink or whatever." And we put it on, I think I put a Facebook page up, and I swear to God, in the first, like, 6 months, we sold hundreds, and so many we just couldn't keep. I didn't see Nick. He was constantly had pink nose hair, where he'd be spraying all these sprays pink. We started off just kind of getting sack barrows and, like, beating them up a bit and putting extra bits on and making them, because our showers are very different from other ones in that we've got a proper safety block between the boiler and the gas bottle, so we've had to make all of that stuff, and then eventually we were like, "This is actually a business, we should do this properly as a business," so we went limited, and we got premises, and we employ people, and blah, 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 and they're now powder coated. Nick doesn't spray anymore. No more pink nose hair for Nick. So, yeah, and then that's why he's Mr. Hippo,
But I mean,
because he
that
made the first
business
Hippo shower.
but that I mean, that business is just incredible, isn't it? You see so
Yeah,
many people talking about their hippos online like a
yeah,
member of the family. I mean, I think they probably love their hippos more than some members of their family.
yeah, and that's kind of how I've marketed it like that, it's a deliberate marketing like that, and it's not in a, and but we are a genuinely a small family company, and it's marketed in very much a me way. That's how I would think of my hippo if I had one. It would be a part of the family. So we do things like, don't forget it's cold, take your hippo in the house and wrap it up in its sleeping bag, put its gym jams on. So I talk up, and that's how I've marketed it. But that is how genuinely, it's not in any way unauthentic
No,
marketing. It's exactly who I am and who I would be if I had my own. Well, I do have my own hippo,
you do have your
but
own.
I actually have two, if I'm honest. But yeah, so I think it's just worked well, and I think that people know that they are buying from a proper family business. Everything, because it's all made here. We can, check, we can service and repair, and make, people choose the color of their frames, and I do think I am quite proud of how I've marketed Hippo, because I think you're right. I think when you see people talk about them, people give them names, and when people send them back in for service, they have like to fill out a little form that says, what's wrong with the Hippo, or anything going wrong, anything we need to look at. And they write on there sometimes, this is Geraldine, and they've got little names.
Oh,
And I think, yeah, and that makes me really proud, because not only have I built a business accidentally, but not only built a business, it's a successful business. I mean, it's not very profiting, but the turnover is decent, and it's got a very good reputation, which is all I'm worried about, really. Really good reputation. I built that, and I built that very much based on my personality. So I think it's nice that's gone well. Yeah,
I think it's also really cool because, and the next phrase is going to seem a little bit offensive, but just stick with it. A
yeah,
shower
I'm
is
fine.
probably one of the least sexy things. Like
Oh
yard
yeah,
kit is not incredibly
not
exciting.
sexy.
But the
No.
way that hippo, you can have any color, you can have glitter,
Yeah.
you can have, it's really challenged the kind of preconceptions of just functional kit. It like you don't
Yes.
see people getting that excited about a bucket or a brush or a
No.
do you know what I mean? A solarium. It's a whole. It's really interesting how it's been marketed in a really good way. How it's kind of turned a
Yes.
rather dull product on the face of it into something that's super cool, and
Yes.
people love it. It's not just a functional item, they're kind of
They love
emotionally
it.
connected
People
to
are
it.
emotionally attached to them, yeah, for sure.
Mm,
Um, and I think you're right. I think that it has sexed it up quite a lot. There is quite a sexy thing about them, like with the glitter and everything like that. I mean, obviously not sexy, but like cool.
yeah.
And our customers are very much split into, oh no, I don't care what color it is, to OMG, I want bright pink with glitter handle, and I want this and I want that. They're very split. You're either one or the other. No one really is in between. I'm obviously the pink glitter side of the market, but yeah, I think, and I think it's good, and I think that you do see a lot now, like of pink buckets, and you can get pink tie rings and things like that. By the way, we do other colors other than
Yeah,
pink, but
yeah.
pink is by far our most popular, like non like bright color. We do blue, pink, and black as standard. Black is probably the main seller, but pink is very close behind. Very close.
Saw a beautiful one that you did for, was it Georgia, Little Pet Channel, like a sagey
Yeah, she's got
green?
like a sage green one. That's lovely.
Beautiful.
Yeah, really lovely.
Can you literally do
Um,
any color?
yeah, so any color that you can pick off what's called the RAL code, like chart thing. So people say I want number 1357, and if because we powder coat them all to order, so if we have that powder coating color, then yes, any color. we've had people ask us to colour match their windows, their lorry, their everything really.
I love that. I know you did an orange one, didn't you, for Equilibrium? You ran the
Yes,
Equilibrium
that was a bright,
competition.
bright orange. That was, yeah,
That
it's a
was
nice
cool.
orange actually.
That was
And then
cool.
we've just done some. So this month, last month, we had an order in for quite a few for the King of England, which I thought initially was maybe someone winding me up. And then it turned out it really was for the King of England. So we now have hippo showers at Buckingham Palace, at Windsor Castle, and at the Royal Mews.
Awesome.
Um, and then the very next day after that, Donald Trump put in an order. So then I was like, this someone really is pulling my leg. But no, it really was. It's gone up to his place in Scotland. And then we've just done some for the Household Cavalry. And by the way, I have permission to tell you this because I did check. Because sometimes when you do things for the royals, you have to be careful with sharing the information. But yeah, he said it's fine.
Did
But
you check
yeah,
about
so
Donald as well?
I don't think Donald cares. I think Donald cares.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't think he cares. He's too busy in America. Going to be the next president, apparently. So
We're
yeah,
not,
so
we're
I
not, we don't do politics on here because I can't deal with it.
I can't do. No, I can't deal with politics. I hate politics. I was saying to someone the other day, I just don't understand like politics and war. I just don't understand war. Full stop. I
No.
just don't get it. But anyway, so we've got a few high flying clients, and it's amazing for such what is essentially a very small brand. You know, there's only four of us really. There's me, Nick, and all Nick does is I lend his name to Mr. Hippo now, and he comes and do the trade stands, and he does the occasional repair. And then there's Martin, who's our plumber, and then Lindsay, who does all of our admin and like the posting out and things like that. So it's a really small team, and we yeah, we've done well for such a small team. And actually, sometimes we have people ring up, and I think they presume that we're this massive company, and it's like, oh no, Lindsay's there because Lindsay works from home. Lindsay's answering the phone with her child scrabbling around her feet and the dog barking, and I think people think, oh god, it's a tiny company. I thought it was a huge one. So yeah,
Yeah, but I think that really adds to the, the personal touch anyway. People can speak to you and get exactly what they want. They can
yeah,
come and see you. It shows and it's you or it's Nick or it's a member of your
yeah.
team. It's awesome.
It's
And
actually
obviously,
much. We could make it a much bigger company, but we would lose all of that, and that we would make more money. We could have it all, everything made in China and shipped over. We wouldn't have to touch anything, but then we would lose that, and then it wouldn't be authentic to me. So
no. And so we've got Hippo is one accidental
yeah,
business. The not
uh huh,
accidental business is the saddle fitting side of it.
yes, that's very deliberate.
How did you fall in love with saddle fitting? So out of any horse job, I know you said you wanted to get back into horses, but why did you go, yeah, saddlery is the one for me?
But I actually, so I did I did a course about back, something called Bowen therapy. So I was going to be like an equine Bowen therapist was my thing. And then to do that, I had to train to do people first. And so I did people, and then I did horses. And then one of the was like a little mini part of the course was about saddle fitting. And then I was like, oh, I want to do this. Why am I poking ponies when I could be doing stuff with leather? And then I got into doing that, and I loved it. And I was really lucky. I was taken. There's a guy called James who used to own Barnsby and is now works at Ideal, and he sort of took me under his wing a little bit and encouraged me. And I feel like this is what I wanted to do, and I loved it, and I got into it, and I did I did this like the SMS training. You have to do lots of intro training with them, and then you have to go off like 5 years and work and train, and then come back and do your exams, and I did it, and I love it, and I think the fact that I'm still doing it is kind of proof that I love it because it's more than 15 years ago now I started, and I'm still doing it. So, like I say to Nick, being my husband, he's very lucky he's still my husband because I have a tendency to kind of start something and then just flit to the next thing.
Yeah, but he is
So
Mr. Hippo,
my,
so
I
it would
think
be
it's
weird if you split up.
be weird if he wasn't there, yeah.
Be
So
really weird.
I think both Nick and saddle fitting is testimony to my absolute love because yeah, and my children. I still love my children. They're grown ups now, so yeah. I think there are a couple of things in the world that I have stuck at, and being married to Nick and doing saddle fitting, and I think it's because I love it. I have to say, every winter I do wonder if I love it.
Yeah, I think that I
Winter
can
does make a
understand
big
that.
difference to my, the quality of my life. Yeah,
Mm. And through the saddle
definitely.
fitting, you have become a bit of a YouTube star as well.
hmm Yeah, so over lockdown, again, finger in another pie. Over lockdown, I thought, oh God, I can't sit at home for 6 months doing nothing. And that's when I kind of thought about the education side of things. And it's something that I'd really thought about before, but never had the guts to do. And if I'm totally honest, the reason I'd never had the guts to do it before was because of the Society of Master Saddlers. So they're my governing body, and they are the most awesome governing body in the world. Like I cannot tell you how good they are in terms of like overseeing saddle fitting, saddlery, and stuff like that. They are the most amazing governing body in the world, but they're also quite scary, which is part of what makes them amazing because they're strict and they've got rules. And our saddle fitters have to abide by those rules, and that's what makes us good saddle fitters because we abide by all these very strict rules. But I know that they don't. Well, they didn't. I felt that they didn't want maybe the general public to learn how to saddle fit. Well, they don't. Nobody wants the general public to learn how to saddle fit. That's the saddle fitter's job. So I felt like it was a very fine line between teaching the general public how to saddle fit, but then or teaching them to know more about saddle fitting and how it
Yeah.
works on their horse. So that was my plan. I was like, I'm going to be careful. I'm going to do the best I can, and I'm going to share it with the SMS. And I'm going to, and if at any point they had said no, I would have stopped because they are much more important to me than my ego and getting myself on YouTube. Which, to be fair, I hated to begin with. When I'm a very shy person in day-to-day life. So this work me and this YouTube me is actually not personal life for me. I'm very shy. So it was tricky, and I did it, and I started off and I did a few like saddle dissections, and I filmed myself cutting up a saddle and showing people what's inside a saddle, because how many people put a saddle on their horse every day and have no idea of the structure of their saddle? And it's
What
really important.
what was inside one saddle?
So one saddle, I did the one with the maggots. So I did a little series like I'm going to buy a cheap saddle and look inside it, because it was quite a trend, I think, especially over lockdown, because people weren't getting the saddle fitter out. They were
Mhm.
buying online, which is fine. I've got no problem with that as long as you get it fitted. But people were treating, in inverted commas, their horse to a new leather saddle. And then they were like, OMG, on eBay, you can get a brand new leather saddle for £300. This is amazing. I'm going to treat my horse to this. So I was like, don't buy these. I'm going to buy one on your behalf, and I'm going to show you why not to buy one. So I bought one, had it shipped, dissected it on camera, and it was awful. So number one, it was flocked. Instead of being flocked, it was flocked with like old bits of carpet, and had maggots, had woodworm maggots in the tree.
See, that's not good.
One of them fell onto my solid oak dining table and still lives in there, by the way. Still resides in there, actually in my
No.
kitchen table. Yeah. And I live in a timber framed house, by the way. I mean, you can see, but I'm getting a past. Like
Oh my
I'm
God.
surrounded by bees. So my house is probably going to fall down because of that video. So the very least people do is go and watch that video on repeat, because I get 0.1 pence per view. So I've got a new
Go and
house to
watch it,
buy
people. She's gonna need it to rebuild her house.
to rebuild my house. So I started off. I did that. I mean, that's had like I don't know how many views now. Probably 200,000 views. Like, and for a real niche, like I mean, there's people on YouTube that have millions of followers, but my niche is tiny. My niche is absolutely niche, isn't it? Like people with horses that want to know a little bit more about what's inside their saddle, basically.
Yeah.
So I've got a decent amount of followers. I'm on the part of the YouTube partnership program. I hit all of the figures for that every year. So yeah, I do that. And then that kind of led into more kind of educating stuff, and I should do more education. And so I wrote an online course for horse owners, and I'm going to do in-person courses for horse owners. And again, that very careful line. I'm not teaching them to fit their own saddle. I'm teaching them to know what to look for, teaching them to know what's inside their saddle, how to check if their saddle's broken, how to see if their saddle doesn't fit. We're not teaching them how to adjust their saddle to fit,
No.
but how to see if their saddle doesn't fit. And
And
I
when to
don't think
call
it's
them.
taking away work from saddle fitters. Yeah, when to call the saddle fitter.
I think
The
it's
more you
helping
know,
because
yeah.
otherwise you kind of just think, "Oh, it's fine, my horse is fine." And actually, they might be giving you subtle hints. And I know sometimes like behavioral issues, and I know behavioral issues can be caused by a number of things. I'm not saying if your horse isn't turned into being a bit naughty, it's definitely because a tack doesn't fit.
No,
But
exactly,
it's
but it
it's
can
one
be.
thing, isn't it? You can go
Yeah.
off down a veterinary route, and actually it could be something completely different that if you
Hmm.
were a bit more aware, you could have perhaps called that saddle fitter and said, "Look, can you come and have a look at this? Because my horse has changed shape," or, or even just knowing
For
if
sure.
your saddle's had some kind of trauma and its tree's
Oh,
broken,
for sure.
you know.
Absolutely. 100%. Everyone should know that, I think. because again, going back to that, we get on our horses, we expect an awful lot of them. We need to make sure that that saddle we're putting on our horse is good. And I think a lot of people don't get the saddle fitter out because I was at a yard yesterday. Yes, yeah, yesterday, literally yesterday. And the woman who owned the yard had got all of the other liveries to join in and to save my call out fee and stuff. And she said, "Oh, there's that one on the end there." I did ask her, but she said no, because she said she's never had a saddle fitter because all they try to do is sell you a new saddle. So I think a lot of people think that saddle fitters are just about selling saddles, but they're not. And the more that they see in the education that I do and other saddle fitters do, because I'm trying to get other people into it too, the more they see, the more they realize what we do. And actually, we're not just about selling saddles, we're about making your saddle fit. We're
Hmm.
not all just after the money. I mean, I wish I was. Might drive a better car.
But then, I mean, from
Mm.
what when we've spoken before, obviously I know that new saddles do cost a lot of money, but
Oh,
actually
yes.
what the saddle fitter gets from that versus the price of the
Yeah,
saddle is
yeah,
not
yeah.
the
We don't
same
make a lot of
animal.
money. A lot of people talk about like these saddle reps. There are a lot of like brands who have reps rather than fitters. And but like, what I would say is if you want a saddle your saddle fitted, you go for a proper qualified saddle fitter. You cannot like the amount of training we go through. And I'm not saying that anyone that's unqualified is crap, because obviously there's people out there who are really good. But actually I was filming a video yesterday for BHS about saddle fitting, and the guy I was interviewing, this ad hoc, we were talking about it, and he said to me, "Well, I wouldn't use an unqualified dentist, and I would use an unqualified vet. So of course I wouldn't use an unqualified saddle fitter." And I was like, "Okay, that's quite a good analogy, actually. You wouldn't go and choose any old Tom, Dick, or Harry to be your vet, would you?" And I know that what we're doing isn't surgery, but what we are doing to the saddle can have a catastrophic effect on the horse's back, on the horse's comfort, on the horse's well-being, on the horse's happiness, and
And
ultimately the
safety.
horse's health
And
and
say
safety. Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
safety
Rider
for horse and
safety.
rider. Mm.
Yeah, exactly.
No, completely. I
Yeah,
think again, people don't necessarily think of it in the same way when they should do. It's
yeah.
seen as equipment, like a rug, and it's not a
Uh
rug.
huh.
It's
No.
a very different piece of kit. So you've obviously taken that and you've developed an online course, which is brilliant.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, and that was released last year, wasn't it? Your course,
Yeah. It was probably about 6 months ago, I guess. Maybe not. Or maybe a year ago. Oh, I don't know. I
but
haven't got
that's
very
done
great time management.
super well. That's done really, really well,
That's
hasn't it?
done well, yeah, and I've had really good feedback as well. And actually, somebody popped up on one of my social things the other day, and they said, "Oh, I did this last year, and I love it." And then I saw a saddle fitting client the other day, and she's like, "Oh, can you bring me an extra A3 pad?" So I finished mine, and so she's done the course, and she's bought the little a special like pad that you can use to take your horse's diagrams with, and she's used it like every week, and so she's got this lovely little like build up of like a almost like a diary of her horse's shape, so she can keep on top of her horse's shape. Because owners can do that, you see us measure your horse. Not the hardest thing to do in the world, is it? Watch my videos, I'll tell you how to do it. Simple. And then you can keep track of your horse's shape yourself. And then you can think, actually, do you know what? My horse looks like it's changed shape on its little template. It's probably time to get the saddle fitter out.
Because I think when we are looking after our own horses, we don't see those minor changes, but those minor changes, if the
No,
horse is doing a lot more work and its back muscles
build
are,
up really quick. Yeah.
yeah, I think it's
And you see them
brilliant.
every day. So every day that, 0 point whatever millimeter change in the muscle is unnoticeable. But over 3 months, it can be really noticeable, and your saddle can, need to be 3 width fittings wider.
Mm, no, definitely.
Yeah.
And then you've extended that education piece now into something completely different that I received through the post the other day, which was lovely. Um, can you
I
tell us
forgot
about
about that. Yeah.
that?
Yeah, so then I thought, well, actually, then I had COVID a few months ago, and I was laying on the sofa, and I was like, yes, this is it. This is my chance to relax. Amazing. I'm going to do what everybody else does, and I'm going to watch Below Deck on the telly, or the Kardashians, or some mind-numbing reality TV, and it's going to be amazing. And then about half an hour into my day, I was so bored that I wrote a book for
Although
children.
Below Deck is brilliant. I do like Below
Oh,
Deck.
but I have Below Deck on in the background. That's writing the book,
There we
obviously.
go. That's what we like
Um,
to hear.
so yeah, so I just thought, well, actually, education should start small. Let's start with these little children. And so I've done like it's a story. It's a story, and it's about Lola and Pippin. And Pippin is unhappy, so Lola takes him. They live in the enchanted forest, and so Lola takes him to the wizard, her to the wizard, and says, "Can you give me a magic potion to Pippin, because she's
Pippin is a
unhappy.
pony. Pippin is a
Pippin is the
pony. It's not
pony.
a friend that is a human.
No, so Lola's a human and Pippin's the pony. And then the wizard says, "Oh my gosh, Lola, Pippin doesn't need medicine. She needs a new saddle." So then they go on an adventure finding a new saddle. And then, so it's about the importance of saddle fitting, some of the differences in saddle fitting. And then all of spoiler alert, everyone lives happy ever after because Lola and Pippin
Phew.
have a new
Thank
saddle
God.
and they go galloping through the enchanted forest yet again. Although I have written the next one already, which is about laminitis, because I'm following that theme about education and ponies. And I have to say, again, spoiler alert, the laminitis one is a little more touch and go.
Well, kids' books nowadays are a lot more hardcore than I remember when I was little. I was a
Yeah,
mystery
I mean,
reader
I'm
at
not.
school yesterday, which that's a whole different thing. I mean, yeah. And I got
Yes.
given the class book to read, and it was something like The White Giraffe or The White Lion, something. Anyway, so I was given this book to read a bit of the way through. Both the girls' parents had been killed. And I was like, Jesus.
What?
Yeah, this was a group of 7-year-olds. And I'm like, well, this is
Oh dear
bad.
God.
And when I was reading it, she got shipped off to Africa on her own, waiting for her grandmother, who she'd never seen before, in an airport on her own, because her parents had died. And this bloke came and asked her where her mum and dad
Oh,
were.
that's dark.
And I was just like, what? What? So if we're touch and go, that's nothing. But then Bambi, I mean, that
Well,
starts badly.
exactly. Exactly. And I did think about doing one about, I was going to do one about like loss and sorrow. And I was going to have like Lola's grandma's going to die. I was like, no, I can't do that. I can't have death in a kid's book. But obviously, you can have death in a kid's
Oh,
book.
it's
I mean, I'm not going to kill
completely
off Pippin yet, but she's quite useful. But
no, 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 don't kill off
no,
Pippin. No, that
but she
might be
nearly it was touch and go in the laminitis one at one point. But
Jesus.
that's because laminitis is very serious, and these
Yes.
kids need to know that, one of the lines in it is like, "How can she be poorly? I love her so much, and like she has all the grass she can eat, and I give her apples and carrots every day." Well, they need to know sometimes. These kids need to know from a young age that sometimes diet is important.
Oh, I know, I
You
completely agree. But yeah, don't worry about slightly dark themes. I'm trying to think of some of the other kids' books. I mean, most of
know.
the other ones that they've got from, David Walliams, at least one parent's dead.
I really, oh, I love a David Williams. That's funny.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of the ones. Don't know if that one died, but yeah, no, most of them, someone's died. The one
Or
about
death.
the mammoth, both of her parents are dead. She's an orphan. So yeah, I mean, spoiler alert if you if you haven't bought any David Walliams books yet. Um,
But yes, they're all about death.
but I think a lot of kids' books start like that. So yeah, I don't know how
Yeah.
we've got onto this,
I
but
guess
yeah.
it's so you can have. I guess it's so you can build that relationship with the character, isn't it? So you can, with a bit of drama and a bit of sorrow and a bit of, yeah, makes you
But
bond with the character a bit.
yeah, but we have tears. And not just from me. Um, yeah. But no, I think that's awesome. So you've got a laminitis one coming out. When can we expect
That's
that?
going to be late spring, early summer,
Okay, cool.
hopefully, and then a puzzle and activity book in for Christmas. And yeah, so I similar to Emily Cole one, so I'd just like to point out that I love Emily Cole. And I said to her, "Oh my God, I can't believe you've done an activity book." She said it's fine, so we're okay.
No, it's okay. We're all friends. It's all
Hers are
fine.
obviously more beautiful than mine, so it's fine. We're all friends in this world, yes.
It'll be very different. Emily's is
It'll be
awesome,
very different. Mine's
but
gonna be
yours will
like
be awesome.
educational, hers is just beautiful.
There we go. No, it'll be fine. It's all good. And you can never have enough activity books anyway, I don't think.
No, exactly. I used to love them when I was a child, like going on long journeys. I used to have this book, like it would be like spot the birds. You used to have to mark off as you saw the birds. Oh,
Oh,
God,
look,
I
I
love that
Spy.
book. Yeah, I love I Spy.
Yeah, no, that's still a thing. When we had the lockdowns here, I bought the kids an I Spy book and made them go and like look at things.
Go, but you have to be involved. Children, go in the garden, lock the door,
Yeah,
and go and look
exactly.
at stuff. Come back in an hour.
Exactly. Yeah, here's an I Spy book. I love an I Spy book.
Don't talk to any strangers.
Yeah. Oh God, they did used to yell at strangers. It was awful. And I can't. I think the classic. They were much younger at the time. Obviously, was "Why is your white dog so white?" That was a high shouting across the road to somebody. Why is your white dog so
Oh,
white?
white, because he's got a
And
hippo shower.
when he asked an elderly couple how old they were, that was also a low.
Oh, that's a bit awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah. My eldest, when he was a very small child, walked up to a very large man with a bit of a pot belly and said, "But mans don't have babies."
Oh, 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 kids are brilliant, aren't they?
Yeah.
Bless them.
Well, indeed. Indeed.
Indeed. So thinking about your kind of journey as a whole so far,
Mhm.
what would say let's start slightly depressing. What would the
Mm.
lows have been along your journey? What are the kind of points where you thought, Jesus, this is a lot?
I think just before I so when you do your Society of Master Saddlers training, you have to go and do like your introductory course and you have to do 5 years training and out there on the streets. And I did that for more than 5 years, probably 7 years maybe. And I really put off going to do my exams because everybody said how hard they are. And then because of that, I do feel like I felt for a good couple of years, I felt like a real fraud going out there, fitting saddles, having not done my exams. Even though I was meant to be doing that, that was the job, it's what we're meant to be doing. We're kind of overseen by our mentors. I just felt like, do I even want to do this? Like, if I'm not going to do my exam, there's no point in doing this. But I didn't want to do my exam and fail.
Yeah,
And
I get it.
the fail rate is so high because they really want to make sure only the best of the best get through. So I was like, I don't so I did have a real low point for a couple of years where I just felt I had no confidence in myself. I wasn't confident enough to go and do the exam, and then, and I just thought this. I just don't know why I'm doing this. And then I got given a kick up the bum by again James from Barnsley, or Ideal now, and he just said to me, go and do your exam. Just go and do it. Worst that can happen is you can fail, and then you can resit the parts you fail because there's like 10 parts to it, and I think you only have to resit the actual parts you fail.
Oh, okay.
So I said, "But everyone fails and no one passes, and it's really hard." And then I feel like, "Oh my God, it's a bit like if I did my driving test now, I would probably fail." And then I think, "But does that mean I can't drive? And have I been a crap driver all this time?" So, like, if I go and fail my exams, do I tell people I failed? I mean, like, who am I? Who am I if I'm not a saddle fitter and I failed my exams? And I don't like failure. I've never failed at anything I put my mind to, apart from weight loss, but different story entirely. Um, so yeah, and then I did, and I sucked it up and I booked on to the next exams and I went along and obviously passed first time. Only one in my group that passed, was absolutely amazed. Others have gone on and passed since recently, by the way. But like it was so I think that that was probably the high of my career,
The low
which is
and the
very
high.
close. The low and the high were literally butted up against each other. I'd really sunk to like, why am I doing this? I'd had a few tricky clients. I felt like I couldn't even say, hey, you don't even know what you're talking about because how am I allowed to say that when I've not even done my exams? And then I did my exams. And then since then, I mean, this is years ago now, but since then, I feel like my love of the SMS has grown on a daily basis because I do feel like they're a very good supportive group. And I think, oh, why didn't I just do it? Like, what a stupid thing to have delayed doing because you were scared of failing when A, you didn't fail, and B, even if you had failed, like you could have just kept going and done it. So yeah, so that was probably the highlight of my career. Apart from actually maybe winning saddle fitter of the year, that was probably the other highlight of my career.
That was awesome. What year was
Mm.
that last? I'm so confused with
Yeah,
years.
last year
That was brilliant.
it was brilliant. It was really good, and I kind of feel like it was good because it was that bad time where I had doubted everything and had a couple of tricky clients who had made me feel really crap, and I doubted everything, and they were kind of made me force me into going and doing my exams. I did my exams, and I had that when I had my sash and my rosette last year from being saddle fitter of the year. I thought, "Do you know what? I'm really glad those horrible people existed in my life because without them and without lovely James, who I owe everything to in this world, then yeah, I wouldn't be here on stage with my little rosette, my little
Not little, it was
glass."
huge, if I remember rightly.
Oh, it's huge. I mean, yeah,
It's
I do carry
huge.
around some. I carried it in my car for ages. Had it like hanging up in my car for ages, and then I thought, okay, I look like a twat now, so I'm going to take it off. But
No,
yeah, it was lovely, and I loved it, and that was a really good highlight. And it was just felt like, yeah, I'm glad I stuck with it because I do every winter. I do think, oh, do I want to do this? But I love it. I love the
I think the
people.
winter's
I love the
hard.
horses. Yeah, it's just like
Any
chaps
outside
my
job is
skin.
horrible.
Yeah, And then I come home and I think the one problem, and I think anyone that wants to work with horses needs to consider this because it's a really big problem in the world. When you work with horses and they're your hobby, you lose your love for your hobby.
Hmm.
Because when I come home in the evenings and I've been stood outside all day with other people's horses, there's not a single part of me that wants to run down to the stables to see my own horse. Whereas if I've been sat in an office all day, I can't wait to get outside and smell my horse and, you know, dive around in the mud. I'd love it. But when I've been doing that all day, it really affects your love for your hobby.
Yeah. No, I get that.
Yeah, I have a lot of young girls come out of me on like work experience, and they, desperate to work with horses because they're horsey. And I was like, it's the worst reason to work with horses because you're horsey because you'll stop being horsey. And I still am horsey, and I still ride, and I've got a lovely horse, and my daughter rides, and my son rides occasionally. But yeah, it's definitely not as appealing in the evenings as it used to be.
But then the summer comes and it's awesome.
Yeah, summer comes, and then the ground gets too hard. You can't ride anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good old Britain.
Good old Britain. It's just been a weird one this year, I think. I felt like summer kind of was a bit weird, and then winter is just
Wet.
wet. Like, oh my gosh, we're so wet here. We're very windy at the moment, which at least is drying up the ground, but you can't ride, it's just too windy. But
No, it's really, I
yeah,
mean, the sun's out today here, which is lovely, but the ground is so wet.
yeah.
So what's to come from Poppy Weber Hippo, Poppy Weber the author, the saddle fitter, all things to all
Well,
people?
well, I'm trying very hard not to start anything new.
Okay.
Famous last words. But Hippo, so within what we've got currently going, Hippo has got a new product launching, which is something we've been asked to do for ages. It's an electric hippo instead of a gas one. It's nowhere near as powerful. The reason we've said no always is because you can't get the power you do with a gas one. But
No.
our gas ones go up to 75 degrees, and no one needs them to be 75 degrees. So, yeah, so we're doing a little miniature, probably the size of a larger book, like a really small, compact electric hippo.
When's
So
that launching?
that's launching at the National Equine Show. So the National Equine Show is quite a big one for me this year. So we've got Hippo there. I've got my own stand there where I'm selling the courses and the books and everything that I do. And selling my soul. Also talking on stage with you, I believe, as well.
I'm looking forward to it.
Um, Also doing a meet and greet at the Society of Master Saddlers stand. So really busy little show for me. But I do love the National Equine Show. Actually, it's a good show. Um, and it's in the NEC, which means I get to stay in my favourite hotel. Um,
What's
so
your
yeah, so that's
favourite hotel in Birmingham?
wow. There's two. There's the World Resorts World
Oh, I've
at the
seen
NEC.
that.
It's got like an entire shopping centre inside it. It feels very American. I mean, I don't know because I've never been to America, but it feels like what I'd imagine America to feel
Fair enough.
like a shopping mall inside the hotel with loads of food outlets and things.
That's quite
Although
cool.
this year, I think I'm going budget and I'm going to stay at the Moxie. Have you seen that one called the Moxie, which is really colourful?
Yes. Is it pink?
Some of it's pink, yes, and some
And
of it's
that's
like
actually like
quite
in the
orange.
complex, isn't it?
Yeah, so I'm going to stay there, I think. Anyway, but yeah, so I've got that. We've got that coming up with Hippo. With me, I'm going to start doing some horse owner education days, which is going to be. I'm going to talk about saddle fitting, and I'm going to have a bit fitter to come and talk about bit fitting and bridle fitting, and maybe even get like a rug company to talk about what kind of rugs to use. A vet to come and talk about how to take temperatures and pulses. So that's my next aim. And then do some of the online saddle fitting courses, going to run them in person so people can come along and do them in person, I think.
Awesome. Is there
That's my
anything else
plans.
you would like to add or share before I ask you all the places we can find you online?
No, I can't think of anything. I think we've
Excellent.
covered loads, way more than I thought we would.
Oh, we get chatting.
I
It's
thought
all
you were going to
good.
be like, what's your Instagram handle? And that was going to be it.
No, no, I feel like we owe it to the listeners to give a little bit more detail than that. Just a teeny bit. So, where can people find you online? Where are all the places?
So the main place online is Facebook, which is facebook.com/a day in the life of a saddle fitter. You can also find me on Instagram with the same /day in the life of a saddle fitter. But Instagram doesn't like me very much, so yeah. But I'm trying to do more on Instagram. You can also find me on YouTube, which is youtube.com/c/ that means channel, by the way, a day in the life of a saddle fitter. Or just Google me somewhere, Poppy Weber saddle fitter.
And you've got a website as well where people can find out more about
Oh,
the
I've got a
course.
website, so the website contains all my courses and books and stuff like that. So yeah,
And that is
www.poppyweber.co.uk. So
amazing. And they
yeah,
can
it's
come
got
and see you at the National Equine Show because this will be out
come
before
and
the
see
National
me at the
Equine Show.
National Equine Show. Yes, come and see me at the National Equine Show because I'll probably just be stood on my stand. It's cost me a small fortune, looking gormless, wondering why I did it because no one's come to see me.
You won't
So
be
come and
looking
see me.
gormless. I mean, come and sniff all the
Always look gormless.
leather care products because they smell
Come and
insane.
sniff a leather care. Yeah, I would highly recommend the orange and geranium leather balm personally. Best one.
Do smell amazing. Go and there you
Mm.
go. That's your invitation to go and sniff all of the leather balms on Poppy's
And
stand
then you can go next door to Hippo and sniff their shampoos because their shampoos that I made are also really good.
with the coolest colours and the coolest labels.
Yes, single tank. There you go.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been brilliant to talk to you. And well, I mean, I'll definitely see you soon, and hopefully lots of other people will as well.
I will definitely see you soon. Excellent. Okay, thank you so much for having me.